my eye. Through the mist, my surprise shone light from distant northern skies. At that point, realized I don't know where it comes from, but I know it's okay. If this is all an illusion, then I'm willing to play.
Welcome to the Quantum Guide Show, interviews with awakened masters as they share their quantum work with you. The Quantum Guide Show is produced by Karen Holton, creator of the 9 Steps to Quantum Health Transformation, a free 9-step online course to give you the tips and resources you need to thrive. Karen lost and continues to keep off 178 pounds of surplus body weight as she made her dreams come true. Whether you are awakening to the ascension process or simply want a wiser, more efficient lifestyle, this program is for you. No strings attached. The Quantum Guide Show is brought to you in part by Zendome's Orgonite, Karen's unique brand of orgone generators, ethically sourced, handmade, and double charged for maximum effect. Find out how orgone generators work and what they can do for you. Don't be fooled by imitations. Check out Karen's current selection, only available from her website, KarenHoltonHealthCoach.com, and on Facebook, facebook.com/Quantum Health Transformation. Enjoy the show.
Welcome back to the Quantum Guide Show. This is episode 32, and my guest is Ryder Lee. Ryder is a truth seeker, knowledge guardian, and spiritual educator. He uses his real-world experiences to educate and elevate others, to awaken, question their reality, expand their consciousness, and raise their vibration. Today, Ryder and I will talk about trauma and how it affects us on an individual and collective level. We will discuss how it shapes and molds us into the beings we are today, and how that trauma can be programmed for mind control purposes. Emancipation comes when we evolve past these traumas and cut the cords within them to heal ourselves. It doesn't matter how big or small the traumas are, if we don't go back and make peace with them, they will keep us in a trap. Check out his YouTube channel called Raised by Giants, where Ryder interviews others from all backgrounds about their spiritual awakening. This brings people from many different perspectives who share what's going on in the world from an individual and collective perspective. His guests share insights, knowledge, wisdom, and awareness from their own personal experiences. Check out the links in the description box below this video. Welcome, Ryder. How are you doing today?
Thank you so much, Karen, for having me on. I really appreciate it. It's wonderful to be on your show.
Thank you. My pleasure. My pleasure. So let's start off with having you tell us a little bit about your own awakening. How did that go down for you, Ryder?
Oh, well, it's a long process, but I'll kind of shorten it up. Basically, whenever I was younger, I was very in tune with a lot of things that was going on, like a lot of us, I think, are whenever we're younger, we're just born, we're kind of, close as we're ever going to be to source while we're living in this, this physical body. But at a really young age, I started seeing beings come out of the wall. Right, like whenever I would lay down and try and go to sleep, and there was that old wood paneling, and it was in a trailer. It was that old 70s, 80s wood paneling, and they would come out of the wall like they were translucent, non-corporeal beings, and they would surround me in my bed, every night, and it scared me a lot, and to this day, I'm still kind of, not so much scared of the dark, because I think I've kind of conquered that fear, but it kind of messed up my sleeping patterns, right? Because I would stay up all night and then like I would sleep all day, and my parents would kind of wonder what was going on whenever I was trying to sleep until noon. They're like, "What's wrong with this kid?" And then I would try and tell them, and they thought that something was wrong with me. They took me to an eye doctor, and they were like, "Oh yeah, there's something wrong with him. He's seeing these things." And so it kind of shut down that clairvoyance in me, because I think there's two different kinds of spiritual abilities, right? There's clairvoyance and there's clairaudience. Clairvoyance is that you can see, and clairaudience is that you can hear.
Mm-hmm.
And that kind of shut that ability down in me. But then other abilities started coming up where I would be able to see the future. I would be able to kind of predict events that were going to be happening. I would be able to predict the song that was going to come on the radio next, and the song after that, and the song after that. And it got to the point where my mom would just not listen to the radio around me. She would just turn it off, because whenever people don't they're kind of afraid of what they don't understand, and when they haven't been through that process and they don't get it, then they get afraid and they get scared. So she inevitably shut that down within me again. But I'd always had these really powerful manifestation capabilities whenever I was younger too, and I wish I would have actually brought that over into my earlier in my adult life. I would have this ability to where whatever I would think about and whatever I would concentrate on, and that I would believe in with 100% of my being, and have the proper intent behind it, then I would get it. And it was like that with a lot of things in my life. Like I would always collect Pokemon cards whenever I was growing up, and stuff like that, and basketball cards. And my dad owned a comic book shop, so I was into all the superheroes and like all of that stuff. So I would be able to basically put the intent out that I wanted a specific card, right? And I would go to my dad and I would be like, "Hey Dad, I'm gonna go pull the holographic Charizard card, out of the pack today. You got to take me to the store, to get it." And what do you know? Every time that I would put that out in the universe, like I would go to the store, grab the pack, and I would get that card, right? And I think that would have been a very important lesson. But I was so young that I didn't understand anything of what was happening, or how that really worked, because whenever we're young, we don't really know what's going on. We're confused, we don't really know where we are, because I don't really think that a lot of us are even from here, right? I believe that a lot of us are just from outside of the planet, and we're just kind of put here. That's a big reason why it's hard for us to get along, and we have a lot of different views and a lot of different things going on, because none of us are indigenous to Earth, so it makes it difficult for us to get along and get on the same page with everything. But that's besides the point. Later on, whenever I left my parents, because I left my parents' house when I was 15, and I moved in with my grandmother, and then kind of shut down like a lot of my abilities, because I was dealing with that, and the move and all that. And then I got a really big awakening whenever I was around 19 years old. I mean, there was an awakening before that. There was to like a lot of the corruption and a lot of the things that was going on. I watched the movie Zeitgeist, and Zeitgeist kind of blew me wide open to a lot of the corruption and a lot of things that's been going on, and completely, throwing the wrench in religion and Christianity and all that. But the big spiritual awakening that I had, because I think there's levels to all of it, right? You have the corruption level, spiritual awakening stuff, and then you have the actual spiritual awakening, where you realize where you're living, what you are, who you are, and I had that awakening around 19, between the ages of 19 and 20. And everything just kind of, it was like my crown chakra just completely like opened up, and I was receiving so much information. So many things were just coming at me all at once. And it was like a ton of bricks just being dropped on my head all at one time. And I felt completely alone because, I was from a very small town of, 2,000 people. I didn't feel like anyone understood what I was going through. And, I was talking about, very advanced concepts compared to their understanding, So again, they thought that, there's something was wrong with me, just like just like my parents had thought that something was wrong with me when I was growing up, so I kind of just imploded in upon myself, right? I just collapsed in upon myself because I didn't have an outlet. I didn't have people to talk to. I didn't really know anything about the internet. YouTube was just, kind of starting to be a very popular thing then. So I didn't really know about the truth community. I didn't know about any of these concepts, but I was just getting them, all at once. And I was wanting to just numb that out, because I felt like that I was the projections that people were, putting on me, that there's something wrong with me, that that I'm the crazy one, that I'm not the normal one. I was starting to believe, because whenever you're in an echo chamber of information and that's all that you get, that's just the reinforcement that you constantly get all the time, right? You just keep constantly reinforcing your previous thoughts and previous beliefs, right? That's what echo chambers really do, in my opinion, right? It's just, it doesn't matter if the information is correct or true, right? If it's constantly being shoved down your throat and reinforced on you, then you believe it. So I started looking for ways to escape that. And I unfortunately turned to drugs and, hard drugs. And it got me caught in a vicious cycle because it did exactly what it was intended to do. And it numbed everything out, and it got me caught up for a while, about 4 or 5 years. And, I kind of, but I mean, I don't, regret any of that because it's made me the person, that I am today, and I've been sober for almost, 2 years now. So it's been a real blessing. And yeah, that's basically my story.
Wow, fantastic. I just want to go back and ask you a little bit. Those beings that you saw coming out of your wall, did you get were they negative or were they positive? Were they, I'm guessing they were negative because they really scared you.
Well, again, I think that it kind of goes back to a thing. If we don't know what it is, then it's automatically negative and it's automatically scary, right? But I'm not 100% sure. I've kind of told that story to a few people that kind of seem to be in the know, and they think that it sounds like gray ETs that were visiting me. And but I'm not 100% sure because, like, as well as I do, that there's negative ETs and there's positive ETs, right? Just like there's negative humans and there's positive humans on the planet, right? We live in a dualistic polarity reality. If everything was all negative, then it would tip the scales too far in that direction. If everything was all positive, it would tip the scales too far in that direction, right? There has to be a balance, and when the negative comes up, the light has to come up to meet it. That's a Star Wars quote, but it's 100% real. And I think Star Wars is more, Star Wars and Star Trek is more similar to our reality than what a lot of people even think. They got to kind of read between the lines. But they could have been negative, and they also could have been positive. But they never hurt me in any way that I can recall. I think that they were just there to kind of observe me, because my father had ET encounters when he was growing up too. And I think that it was kind of a generational thing.
Yep.
And they were just there to kind of, check in on me and make sure that everything was okay. But yeah, it did freak me out because it's not something normal that I think that a lot of people see. I mean, they could, but I don't think it's what a lot of people really talk about. And then they repress those aspects of, whenever they were a child too,
It's funny, so many of us have so much in common, this having these experiences of as children, not being believed. Many of us will keep lights on at night for the rest of our lives, because we're keenly aware that there are other things that go bump in the night that other people don't believe in, and also they're not perceiving it. So it's really quite interesting, and we often do our go rounds with addictions. I myself also, had all kinds of addictions. I had to strip off, and of course, I would say my most obvious one was alcohol. And but you know what? I was also very addicted to the whole cycle of going and getting pharmaceuticals. So even though they were legally prescribed, I had so many migraine headaches and so much body pain. I was on all these heavy drugs. And after a while, I didn't know if I was getting the pain so I could get the drug, or if I was taking the drug because I had the pain. So I think that is going, narrowing down into our main topic today, which is about trauma. And because addiction, certainly, at least for me, I feel like addictions are very much like the thumbprint of trauma. What can you tell us about trauma, Ryder? And what can you tell us about trauma? And what are the usual ways that trauma affects us?
Well, it's like you said in the intro to this video, is trauma doesn't have to be a huge thing in our reality. It doesn't have to be someone getting shot. It doesn't have to be someone getting stabbed, or someone doesn't have to have a big injury or be raped or molested. It can be very small, right? But I mean, of course, those things are traumas too, of course, but the small things is, because we can identify the big things, because those things normally stick with us our entire life, but the small things also stick with us, right? And this is just an example, right? We can like, it can be whenever you were growing up and someone calls you a nickname that you don't like, right? And you never confront them about that, and you let that fester in your mind, and then you repress that, and then later on 10, 20 years down the road, when someone calls you that same name, you automatically get triggered and you go off, not even realizing that the reason for that, right? It's because of 20 years in the past, whenever you were growing up, and that kid or that friend or whoever was doing that to you, and you never confronted them, and you just repressed all of that, right? Because our mind is a beautiful technology, right? Our mind literally has the capability to recall events, right? And whenever we recall these events, it's like our body is reacting as if the event is actually happening again, right? That's how beautiful and amazing this technology that we call being a human being and being in a physical vessel is, right? So whenever we go back and we think about these memories, it's like we're reliving them, right? The body doesn't know the difference, as if the trauma is happening or it's not happening for real. So, and it doesn't even have to be with calling you a nickname that you don't like. It can be anything, really. It can be your friend stealing or taking a piece of bubble gum from you all the time, every time that he sees you, and you don't ever say anything to him about it. You just let him go. So therefore, whenever someone around you even acts like that they're going to take anything from you, you automatically get in that reactionary triggered mindset, right? And a lot of these things, it's difficult to identify because they've been suppressed for so long, and it's been stuck in our mind, and it's been just drilled into there as a core belief and just a part of our personality without us even knowing why it's a part of our personality. It really shapes us into who we are. I mean, if you look at it, whenever we are born, we're basically traumatized, right? We're born in a hospital, and if you're a male or you're a female, you're being stripped away from your mother, the only person that you've been inside for the past 9 months. You're taken away from your mother. You're pumped full of jabs. They jab the crap out of you. If you're a male, they cut off the end of your penis, right? Like that's just setting you up for all of the rest of the things that's going to happen in you throughout your life in this control system, in this control matrix and control reality.
Yeah.
Right. And people think that, oh, well, they're so young, they're just a baby, they're not going to remember. Well, our body remembers. Like everything is energy, everything is a frequency, and it's really easy to imprint on everything, right? And I think that's what that's for, is to imprint on us whenever we are the youngest, to set us up for basically failure.
I think I would agree with you. And I also think it's part of one of the mechanisms that creates or initiates the construct within for each person as they're born. So they're traumatized at birth. They're traumatized throughout their childhood. It's just layer upon layer upon layer till the point where we no longer resemble our feral selves, our true selves, and then when we don't fit into the construct, like for instance, both you and I were told, that we were imagining, our God-given gifts, that we were imagining it, that it's not real, whatever. It's very well known also in sociology and in psychology. We take in what we're told about ourselves from those around us. We take that in and we become that thing, which is exactly what you were saying. And so I think that it's part of the construct, and part of maybe waking up from the construct is starting to be aware that it's a big fake reality out there. I really loved it when you said that you watched Zeitgeist. Me too. And actually it started for me with The Secret, Zeitgeist, just spirit science, all of those things, because there was nowhere else to go for this information. But I don't want to take it too far away, because I want to talk about the ways that trauma shapes and molds us into the beings that we are today. Can you say a little bit more about how trauma shapes us? I know it would probably, from what you've said already, it alters our belief systems, and then we go out and operate in the world according to those belief systems. Is that what you were saying earlier?
Yes, basically whenever we're born, we're given an identity, right? We're given a belief system, we're given a birth certificate, we're given a social security number to be traded on the stock market, right? That's what all of those things are for. And we live our entire life basically trying to live up to that identity, right? We're trying to live up to the identity and the environment and where we're born, in the beliefs that we have, in the attachments that we've made. We're trying to live up to that in our entire life, right? So all of these things really mold us on a fundamental level and a spiritual level, and everything is all connected. It's all integrated into one. It's only an illusion that it's separate, right? So whenever you get into talking about spiritual concepts and spiritual reality, and that we're living in an illusion, then everything is kind of an illusion, right? So this is where I think a lot of people are caught up, is that a lot of people are a product of their environment, right? They're a product of their surroundings, they're a product of their belief systems, they're a product of where they're born, they're a product of their ideology, they're a product of what they know, right? Because how do we even know anything? We're basically only told information. We only know what we know based on what others have told us, right? So
Mhm.
if others are giving us false and wrong information, then we're going to take that information and we're going to think that it's right.
Mhm.
That's why that I don't believe that there's any one ultimate truth, right?
Mhm.
Everyone has their own individual truth. The truth is is relative to the beholder, the person that holds that truth, right?
Mhm.
No one has a monopoly on truth. That's all on an individual level. Like, I think that the whole world is basically ran on perception, right? However you perceive it. If you want to perceive it negatively, then it's going to be negative. If you want to perceive it positive, then it's going to be positive. If you want to perceive it as that being truth and fact, then it's truth and fact.
Mhm.
I think that that's the way that it works. Because if it didn't work that way, then everyone would be on the same page, and there would be no difference of opinion, no opposition, no challenges,
Mhm.
right? Because everyone's on a different frequency, everyone has a different awareness, right? I think that's why it's important not to get in an emotionary reaction to anything, right? Because we've been trained that if someone disagrees with us, and if someone has different views than us, then we hate them for that, and we want to bring them onto our side. No, let them be, let them do their own thing, right?
Mhm.
And if your thing that you believe is so powerful and so real and so truthful, then they would come over to your side eventually, right?
Mhm.
So it's sorry, I might have gotten off a little bit
No, it's good.
topic on the trauma.
It's all good. I mean, I also would agree with you. One of the problems I have is that mainstream society, which changes depending on what country you're living in, what religion you belong to, but they try to tell you that their truth is the truth. So you go to one church and they say, no, this is the only way that's acceptable to God. You go to this church across the street, different religion. Oh, no, this is the only way. And so we're told, oh, no, you have to believe this is truth, that truth, this truth, that truth. And there's very little room for creating our own truth. But and yet that somehow seems to be what we have to do. We have to come to the point where we want to create our own truth and be true to that without trying to hammer that into anyone else. Because like you said, we all have our own perspectives. We all come from a unique perspective, and here we are vying all these different perspectives, and and you're right, it adds contrast. And I don't know about you, but I love contrast. A life without contrast seems to have no meaning. So
Yeah, if we didn't have challenges and adversity in our life would be super boring, right?
yeah, and no
That's what
sense of accomplishment.
Yeah, and I think that that's a part of the game and the matrix reality that we're in right now. Because
Mhm.
okay, think about this: if you're God, right? If you're infinite source, then you already know everything, right? So what's the fun in knowing everything, right? So would you not want to come back here onto the and because I think the goal is to realize that we are source and that we are God, right? And we're just trying to find our way back home because that's a challenge, right?
Mhm.
Because you're already at the top. All of us are already at the top because I believe that we are all God, right? We're all God. God is us, you know. So if we're already up there, then we're down here trying to make our way back home.
Mhm. Yeah, and I do agree. And many philosophies, ancient philosophies would also agree with you. It's a bit of a game. It's kind of it's supposed to be, I think, more playful than traumatic. But that leads me to my next question, Ryder. You said that trauma can be programmed for mind control purposes. Can you elaborate on that and tell us more about that?
Well, a lot of what this control system does is placate on our traumas, right? Not only our individual history trauma, but on a collective trauma basis, right?
Mhm.
Like with 9/11, right? That was a collective traumatic
Mhm.
event,
Mhm.
right? and then they can placate on that for years to come, right? Because look at how many years after that we heard about terrorism. Like every day, it was terrorism. Like they would blame every shooting on terrorism. They would blame every bombing on terrorism because they've singed that into the collective consciousness through trauma, right? And then they get you triggered when they blast that on the news, right? Because they've had that big traumatic event where they collapse the towers, right? And then the next day, like they played that forever. They did that forever, right? Like there was a year after that, it was nothing but that every single day, constantly reinforcing that trauma, right? So then later on, a couple of years when it's kind of simmered down, they can bring that back up again, right? Because it's been singed in the collective consciousness of the people. And that's exactly what's happening right now. They've just, they've switched it from terrorism, right? And they've turned it into something else. I'm not going to say the name because I don't want the censors and all that, but I think people know what I'm talking about, right?
I agree. I agree completely. And they seem to really be hitting on fear of lack of safety seems to be the underlying part of it. Fear of dying, fear of losing out. They seem to tap more into that than a lot of the other. Like trauma could be anything. It could be fear of not being loved, of losing our community, all kinds of things, social standing, anything. But this is a very, in my opinion, Ryder, a very concentrated effort to get us to be in fear mode all the time. And boy, it's a chore to stay outside of that. It takes, at least in my opinion, active, like for instance, I don't watch any mainstream news or any mainstream TV. I refuse to infect my brain, not to mention the fact that TV and all those shows are actually only there because the commercials support them. It's to sell products. And that just drives me nuts. I don't want 50 million, they've spent millions, maybe billions of dollars to figure out how to get into our heads, to make us buy their crap, right? I can feel it. I'm so sensitive. It just drives me horrible. I can't stand listening to it. So I just engage. So I'm sorry, I didn't mean to take it off on a tangent, but I'm just saying like that's one way that for me that I, otherwise I would be terrified from morning till night, all through my dreams, all through the next day. That's going to wreck my psychology, take away my peace, hurt my health. Holy smoly. And they're really good at it. We keep falling for it. But, and I think this is partly why you're on the show today, is to help us to realize even more that we have a choice and that we can open up our eyes. And it takes extreme discomfort to wake up. But I feel it's really, really worth the effort. How do you feel about that, Ryder?
Yeah, you brought up a really good point there. But touch back on the collective thing for a second. They do that with everything. It's not just with terrorism. They do it with drugs, right? They'll make a big, huge drug bust. And then they'll be like, oh yeah, did you guys forget that we have a really bad drug problem? You know what I mean? They'll blast it all over the news. And then that's another traumatic thing because someone at least has one family member that's been addicted to drugs, that's probably OD'd and died from drugs or alcohol, so that's another traumatizing thing. And then, with the Black American community, they've done the same thing. They're placating on their trauma, from the past. And they just bring all of these things up through psychological warfare, right? And they slowly just drip it into the collective to trigger people, because you can literally, if you traumatize someone, you can program that trauma. right? It's like MK Ultra,
Yep.
Project Pegasus, like all of that is to program people through trauma, right? To have a certain reaction when a word is spoken, and an event happens, right? So, and we've been programmed with this trauma, like I've said, since we've been born,
Mm-hmm.
right? So it's no wonder that they're constantly able to keep getting away with the things that they've been able to get away with,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because we've been traumatically programmed into it.
Yeah, it's like it's another, like you said, psychological warfare. It's weaponizing
Mhm.
life even. Now, what do you recommend that people can do to release themselves? What can we do to release ourselves from this control, from the negative effects of our trauma, since we all have it?
This is a wonderful question, and I'm really glad that you asked it, because I think that that's the most important thing, right? Is solutions, right? We can talk
Mhm.
about this stuff, all we want. That's the first step, is awareness, but then the next step is, well, what do you do about it?
Mhm.
Like we can talk about, the conspiracies and, all of the things that's wrong with our reality, but that only gets us so far,
Mhm.
like how do we fix it? What's the solutions, right? And I think that that we individually have to make a difference,
Mhm.
right? It's a collective effort, but it's an individual effort first, right? So if we individually heal ourselves, then in turn we heal the collective, right? Because we're
Mhm.
a part of the collective, but we're also individuals,
Mhm.
right? So it's to me, I'm not going to tell anybody anything that I haven't done personally. That's like a, a loyalty thing. It's not the word that I'm looking for, but it's another word. But I'm not going to tell you anything that I haven't done,
Mhm.
personally, right? Because
Mhm.
I don't believe in just placating like a lot of people like to placate, right? But this is what I did, and this is what helped me a lot. Uh, Developing a spiritual practice,
Mhm.
right? And it doesn't have to be meditation. Like you don't have to be in a Buddhist temple, meditating with monks, and you don't have to devote your entire life to doing that, right?
Mhm.
But a percentage of your life, a percentage of your day, 10 minutes, 30 minutes, however long you feel comfortable, needs to be doing something that lets you get in a 0 point field, right?
Mhm.
Where your mind is calm, you're relaxed, and you can actually think, right? Without all of these outside influences constantly pounding us,
Mhm.
right? And that is exactly what helped me. And if I would have known that that's all that it took, well, that's not the only thing, but that's one of the major things.
Yeah.
That was the beginning, right, of this whole process, and getting to where I am now is developing a spiritual practice. And like I said, it doesn't have to be meditation. It can be whatever you want it to be, right? You could be in the shower, taking a shower, meditate. Then that's a perfect time for meditation. When you're getting ready to go to sleep, meditate, right? Whenever you wake up and you're laying in your bed, instead of rolling over and automatically checking your phone to get hit with all those EMFs that is constantly bombarding us in our sleep,
Mhm.
doing God knows what to our DNA and our our genetics,
I
like
know. Yeah.
um, meditate, and then again, it doesn't have to be meditation. Uh, it could be cooking, it could be art, it can be
Yes.
whatever it is that lets you calm your mind down and decipher the information, right? Because if I would not have been doing these past 2 years, I would be a mess right now, and I would
Yep.
never be able to come on here and talk to you. I would never be able to have my own YouTube channel. I wouldn't be able to do any of the things that I've been doing. God knows, I definitely would not be sober right now.
Yep.
So that's the most important thing in my in my life. And that's all that I can really speak on is my individual experiences. And I can talk about that, and hopefully that resonates with somebody else, and they can pick that up and take it and put it in their pocket. But if it doesn't resonate with them, then they can let it go,
Yeah.
But that's the most important thing that I can tell anybody. And how you do this, I'm just going to get into it really quick. I know I've been talking for a second, but
That's okay. It's okay.
whenever you sit down and meditate, right, or whatever it is that you're doing, you're cooking, you're doing art, whatever, you're trying to quiet your mind. Definitely don't have a TV on. Don't be messing with your phone. Don't be doing any of that. Just let everything just quiet. I even put on like a blindfold, and sometimes I put in earplugs just to get rid of that sensory, get into that sensory deprivation point, right?
Mm-hmm.
So whenever you quiet your mind down, things are going to start to pop up, right? Things from your past. It could be traumas. It could be things that happened that day,
Mm-hmm.
and those things that pop up in your mind and in your brain are things that are energetically connected to us. And 9 times out of 10, they don't serve us at all anymore, right? That's why they keep coming up, right? So you have to go in there and you have to clear that out. Right. And the first step that I do is whenever I'm in my meditative state, I imagine a energetic cord attached to me and attached to that thought, right? Whatever that thought is, whatever is going on in my brain, that memory or whatever. And I imagine that cord, and then I imagine a big pair of scissors just coming and cutting that cord. And as I cut it, I say something. It doesn't have to be exactly like this. You can come up with a variation, but I say something along the lines of, thank you, and I appreciate you, but you no longer serve my highest and best good.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And you let that go, and you basically just send it love, and just watch whenever like you get out of that meditative state, just how much relief you feel. It'll feel like just the weight has been lifted up off of your shoulders, because you're just getting rid of all of that negativity and all of those memories that no longer serve your highest and best good.
Wonderful. Yeah, I call it creating sacred space. I like to create sacred space, and then it's within that sacred space. It takes a bit of practice, but within that sacred space, I'm able to think clearly, be calm, choose even what I want in my head and what I don't want. I mean, there's a saying that says, don't let anybody in your head rent free. Which means if it isn't benefiting us, and it sounds selfish, like we've been taught, oh, don't be selfish. It's another thing that the construct does so that we don't take proper care of ourselves. But within that realm, so like what you were saying, I had to laugh when you were saying about, not laugh at you, but what you were saying, because of the you and I have some weird, freaky similarities. So I got to tell you, one that I've done is very similar to yours. Is say I'm mad at somebody and I've got resentments, and maybe long time resentments, maybe something one of my parents did or something. I imagine myself carrying them on my back to a barge, throwing them onto the barge, taking a big axe and chopping the rope until the barge is free and it travels down the river and around the corner, and I go, bye, see ya, don't hurry back. And I know it sounds ridiculous, but your way is way simpler. So, just imagine the ties and then the cutting them. But I thought that was cool, because for me, it's cutting a rope. For you, it was cutting a cord. And we achieve a very, very similar result. So, there's a saying that says there's 50 ways to leave your lover. Well, there's more than 50 ways to cut those damn cords. Yeah. And we are so creative. We can do that. That is wonderful advice, Ryder. Really wonderful advice. So I agree with the meditation. A meditation doesn't have to look what people think. Like, for instance, I like to cook. And when I'm doing food preparation, if I'm cutting cutting up a pepper. That's all that exists in my universe. It's just that pepper. And I'm just a cutting a pepper. It's all I'm doing. There's nothing in here. It's just a cutting a pepper. And oh my God, once we get used to that, it feels so good. Feels good the way a hot bath feels good.
Oh, yes, 100%. And I think more people need to be taking baths. We've been so accustomed to taking showers and getting in really quick, but we forget the relaxation effects of, taking a bath. Draw a bath, throw some Epsom salts in there, throw some sea salts or something, and just relax.
Exactly. I do the same thing, and it's fantastic. And I come out of there feeling like I'm reborn. I was thinking too, another reason why it's so wonderful is when we're in the water, where the water is a great interface, but we're also connected to the plumbing, and the plumbing is what grounds your house or your apartment or whatever to the earth. So say, for instance, like I live in Red Deer, Alberta. Lately, we've had some crazy cold weather. There's no way I can go out and do some earthing. But if I get in the tub, I am earthing. I'm grounded, and it's just wonderful. I'm so glad you mentioned that you do the bath too with all the Epsom salts and sea salt. Sometimes I throw in sandalwood. Sometimes I put in essential oils, and I also put crystals in the water. They structure the water because every crystal has its own frequency. Anyway, I'm sorry, I'm taking this away too much, but I just got all excited talking to you because I know what you're saying is ringing so true for me. And I hope folks are really hearing this. We're not saying you have to sign up for an expensive program. We're not saying that you have to spend hours making yourself physically or mentally uncomfortable. We're not saying that you have to do anything. You just need to spend some time with yourself without distractions, because see, distractions are another addiction. And that's, I've peeled off so many, but you know what? I struggle with the screen time. If it isn't on the computer screen time, it's on my cell phone screen time. And if it isn't that, I'm watching YouTube or other videos on the big screen on my Roku TV. And it's like I could spend the whole day being stuck on screen. So that's another one that I've had to become very acutely aware of. And I would agree. I've had actually, I don't talk a lot about it, but I've had a fair amount of trauma in my own life. And what I found is a couple of things. First of all, trauma, we can overcome trauma, or at least make it work for us. There seems to be a gift in trauma that when we do the work we need to do to cut those ties, like for instance, I learned to be a good forgiver. A lot of my trauma I couldn't let go of until I was able to forgive people. And but it seems to be there's a prize in there. And once you get to a certain point, you can empathize and comfort other people. There's so many things we could do. So that's my next question, Ryder, is what are some of the positive outcomes that come from recovery?
Well, you basically get your life back, right? You're able to remain sovereign. And the biggest gift of getting rid of your traumas and healing yourself is that everything outside of you, the things that are going on in the world, big events that are happening on the world stage, political matters, whatever, because a lot of things are in political turmoil right now. They have been for a while, but they just cease to exist. They don't even matter. Like, yeah, you can observe them and you can like talk about them, but they don't even affect you. You don't worry about them because you're taken care of. All of these outside things that are constantly trying to come into our field, you can just obliterate them. Like, they don't matter. The consumerism of everyday life doesn't even make a difference anymore, right? Because you've just completely tuned it out. That whole system is made to project an illusionary reality into your field, right? And it's not your reality, it's somebody else's reality. So once you get out of that, then you're basically free. The chains, the unseen chains that's been binding you forever, that you don't even know it was there, is you're finally set free. And I think that's the biggest thing that really any of us want. We really just want to be free. And that starts with being spiritually free first, right? Because all of these things happen on a higher level before they get down into our density, right?
Mm-hmm.
For something to happen, it has to happen on a higher spiritual level. And then it trickles down into our 3D reality. And that goes for negative things and that goes for positive things.
Mm-hmm.
That works both ways. But I would say that the biggest relief and the best thing that you'll find in going through all of these practices and healing yourself and taking care of your side of the street
Mm-hmm.
is that all of these external matters, they just disappear, right? Because you're not focused on them.
Mm-hmm.
They don't matter. You're just focused on yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And I like how you brought up earlier that it seems selfish. Well, I mean, it might be, but we have to take care of ourselves and take care of our side of the street before we're even able to make a difference or help or change anybody else.
Mm-hmm.
Right? That's just the way that it works.
Mm-hmm.
You can't take care of a sick person if you're sick yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's the biggest joy and happiness. And like I said, it doesn't mean that those things don't exist. Like the outside things don't exist, but they just don't impact your life, right? And you can consciously observe them, but not be attached to them, because that's what another thing that they're there to do is not only create the illusionary reality, but it's to get you anchored in to that illusionary reality, to create attachments in your life, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like what I say a lot of times is if you think that you can't live without something in your life, you think you can't live without your phone, you can't live without your computer, you can't live even without a significant other or whatever, and you just like you're basically screwed, because eventually that is not going to be there, right? It's not going to be there forever. So it's important to rid ourselves of these unseen negative attachments, right? The things that no longer serve us anymore. And that's where meditation and all of that inner work really happens. The kingdom of heaven is within. That's probably the only time you'll ever hear me, quoting anything from the Bible. But
it's a good one. It's a good
but
one.
It's the truth. It's the truth. It is. It's all inside, and if we can get in there and we can clear out all of that negative trauma and all those negative things that no longer serve, we can literally connect to whatever it is that we want to connect to. That's whenever I feel that the contact really happens, because there's so much going on in our brain all the time subconsciously. Then our subconscious trickles down into our consciousness, right? So if our subconscious isn't on the same playing field as our consciousness, which is where a lot of our memories and a lot of our programming and everything resides, is in our subconscious, right? So if we can clear out that subconscious mind and get rid of all of our thinking and our analytical side, then we can contact higher intelligence than us. And I think that's one of the very first important keys, and is to do that. If you want to contact your spirit guides, you want to contact your angels, your archangels, your ET guides, whoever it is you want to contact, you have to clear out your mind first and take care of all of the excuse my language, but bullshit that we've been programmed with, and these limiting beliefs of lack. Right. Once we get rid of that, I feel that the doors just swing wide open for possibilities.
I agree 100%. At least that's how it works for me. And if that works that way for me and that works that way for you, it probably would work that way for quite a few other folks. And I think you touched on something really important, and that is we move from an external system of experts and we move into an internal system of experts. Would you agree with that, where we develop our own inner guru and we start to read our own feelings? Because a lot of what I get that's helpful is not even in English language. It's in feelings, it's in body sensations, it's in emotions. And so learning to decipher that and get my own wisdom, and it works like a hot damn. I've never had a bad surprise experience from that. What would you say about that, Ryder?
I think that our intuition is very important, and I think that's what you're talking about, is your intuition, your heart, and your gut and your mind, right? Because I believe that the masculine side of spirituality is in our brain, and the feminine side of spirituality is in our heart, right? But a big issue is that our intuition has kind of been stomped out over time, right? Because they don't want people deciphering their own information. They don't want people coming to their own conclusions. They don't want critical thinkers and people with common sense, right? They just want people following along with the script that's been laid out for them, herded in a specific direction. And it's about an agenda, right? So whenever we unlock our intuition, we're able to decipher all of the information on our own, right? Because there's this thing that the media does, and you can do it to yourself without even knowing, which is what I call information overload, right? Where you're just listening to all kinds of different things, right? And it's just overloading your brain because there's so much information that you're taking in all at one time from all kinds of different people. And a lot of times, those people are very conflicting, right? They're telling you different things, right? And then that eventually gets to the point where you don't even know what to believe. You're lost. You're in limbo. And I've found that slowing down on that, because we're truth seekers. We want knowledge. We want to know what's going on and all that. But I found slowing down on that, right? And really paying attention and listening to people that you feel are speaking truth and that you resonate with, and not just to whoever. I mean, yeah, it's interesting and stuff like that, but a lot of times it's because everything's kind of been hijacked a lot in this community, and a lot of people are putting out, whether they're knowingly or unknowingly doing it, but some people are leading others down a wrong path, right? And it's important to have that intuition in you, and whatever resonates with you, then keep it, and hold on to it and remember it, because the memory is one of the most important things, that we have, and we can put that in our memory, and then we can, whenever certain things start coming together, because this happens to me all the time. Like, I'll be listening to a few people that I find really interesting, but it's important, again, not to do this, every day, because if you don't, then you just can't even process any of it. It just becomes one giant big blur, and then again, you're back to right where you started, not knowing anything, because there's so much coming in all at once. The news and the media have perfected this thing, right? They'll literally do one story one day, and then they'll do the exact same story with a different headline the next day, right? And no one's none the wiser, because there's so much information just being blasted at them that it doesn't matter, and they can basically recycle the information every single week, talking about the exact same things, just in a different way, in a different wording, right? And I think that sometimes we unconsciously do this to ourselves, because we're so used to that instant gratification society that we've been kind of brought up in, that we want the information and we want it now, right? Instead of actually listening to the information and taking it in and then discerning and using your intuition, because a lot of times, it's sad to say, a lot of times people aren't going to tell you exactly how it is, right? A lot of times you have to read between the lines on a lot of things, because a lot of people are coding what they say within a lot of different things. But I definitely don't do that. I try not to do that because I believe in being straightforward and being honest and being authentic, because I think being authentic has kind of been stomped out of our reality. A lot of people just want to be somebody that they're not, and that makes them unhappy.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because they're not resonating and being authentic to themselves. They're constantly trying to live up to someone else's projection of what they think they should be.
Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of people too crave social inclusion. And if we want to be included socially, we sure can't be weird. And, for speaking for myself, I'm totally weird. I'm weird in pretty well every way you could be weird. I'm weird. And
embrace the weird.
Well, me and all my friends, we're weird together. We're weird in kind of a similar genre, and I'm actually totally okay with it. I got to tell you what a relief it was for me when I finally didn't care what people thought of me anymore. That was huge for me. But I don't want to make this about me. Let's get back to you. I want to know, Ryder, where can people reach you, and what can they expect if they reach out to you or contact you? Are you available?
Yes, of course. You can add me on Facebook at Ryder Lee. You can send me a friend request on there. You can follow me on Instagram at Raised by Giants Pod, and you can subscribe to my YouTube channel. I do a video every week, just like what we're doing here. I just bring on someone that I think has good solutions to talk about, spiritual endeavors, because I think that that's what we're lacking a lot in this world. We keep constantly trying to solve a spiritual problem with worldly solutions, right? And it just doesn't work. It never works out because they're not the same thing. They're different. And I think that's what a lot of people are missing in their lives, and they keep trying to fill a void, fill a hole in the core of their being with worldly things, right? When they're missing a connection, right? And they're trying to go out and they're trying to find this connection in technology, in a computer, in your phone, in buying things for people, all of these external worldly consumerism types of things, right? And what I'm trying to do is let people, because I'm not going to tell anybody what to believe, right? That's up to them. What they want to believe. I'm just putting out the information and having a conversation with people that I find interesting and that I think that's going to bring solutions, to the table, and then we can try and work some of that out. And if someone resonates with it, then great, perfect. That's what I'm intending to doing, by being the most authentic and most real and straightforward that I can possibly be, because, not telling someone exactly how it is and exactly what you think isn't doing them a service at all. It's actually doing them a disservice. And I wouldn't want anybody not telling me exactly how it is or what I need to do, and not being direct with me and having to basically, beat around the bush with me. That's not the way that I want people to associate with me and talk to me, right? So I'm not going to do that to any of my viewers. I believe in being, straightforward and direct. And a lot of people, they don't like that because they can't handle it, but that's okay, and they can get triggered, but that's fine. Like that's their journey, that's their awareness. I'm not there to bash on them. I'm not there to tell them that they're wrong for believing what they believe. They're just at a different awareness level. That's all that it is. So thank you so much, Karen, for having me on your show. It's been fun. I had a great time speaking with you. I have to have you on my show sometime in the next couple of months.
I've really, really enjoyed this time with you too, Ryder. I love Ryder's show. It's called Raised by Giants, and I really recommend it. It's like a smorgasbord, where you go to this big buffet table and everything looks so good, and you want to try some of this, you want to try some of that. And that's what your show is like. You've got some really amazing guests with really helpful, interesting things to say. I can't recommend you enough. But before I let you go, Ryder, I just want to ask you if you have a message, just whatever you want to say, whatever you're compelled to say. Do you have a message for the viewers, for humankind? Just any last minute piece of advice, it would be great.
Yes, I do. I know that things seem crazy and wild in our reality right now. There's a lot of uncertainty. There's a lot of things happening, a lot of confusion, right?
Mm-hmm.
But that is done on purpose, right? The media is there to persuade you in a certain direction, to get you locked into an illusionary reality, just like I was speaking about before. It's best not to pay attention, not even watch it. Don't even engage in it. So if I know a lot of us, depending on where you're at in the world, are kind of in like a quarantine still in a lockdown type of situation. I would recommend, if you're in that situation, to take this time to go inward. That is the most important and critical thing that I could tell any of you right now, is to work on yourself, right? Relieve all of the unseen negative influences. Get rid of your traumas or make peace with them. However you do it, you can do it the way that I did it, the way I spoke about it. You can do it the way that Karen spoke about. It's the same thing. But imagination is key in all of this. And that's another thing that's kind of been hijacked from us whenever we're children, is that we're very imaginative whenever we're young. You know, we can see things that don't even really have to be there. You know, and whenever we're adults, we've been influenced by all of these different things that's kind of anchored and locked us into this reality. You know, so a lot of times our imagination goes with that anchoring into this reality. So it's important to take this time to work on yourself. And I promise, and I guarantee you, if you do it enough and you cut your cords with all of these things and heal yourself, even if you think you need it or you don't need it, even if you're a super guru and you think that you know it all, like, I guarantee there's things that you still need to work on. There's things that I still need to work on, and none of us are perfect, you know. I'm just here to share my experience, and hopefully that it resonates with somebody else. But take this time again to work on yourself and develop your spiritual practice and get in tune with yourself and know yourself. And I promise everything else will fall into place in your life.
Wonderful. Absolutely great advice. And I'm just so glad I had you on the show. And I'm hoping to have you back, because we just scratched the surface here. There's so many things we could talk about. So I'm just really thrilled. So thank you, Ryder. And thank you, all the viewers, for joining us today. And don't forget to check out the description box below. So I'll have all of Ryder's links listed below for you. So I guess that's it again for today. So I just say goodbye and thank you, everybody, so very much for joining us.
Thank you so much, Karen, and I'm willing to come back on anytime. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you, Ryder.
Thank you for joining us for the Quantum Guide Show. Become the change you wish to see in the world. Subscribe to Karen's YouTube channel, click the like button, and share the show with your friends. Check out Karen's website at KarenHoltonHealthCoach.com. All the links are available in the description box below. Until the next time, keep up the good work.
Splendor into endlessness puts all my inner strife to rest. For time gives birth to hurriedness. It all makes sense, well, more or less, and the sages put me to their test with heart and soul. do my best to find the answers to my quest. I wonder and I must confess, I don't know where it comes from, but I know it's okay. If this is all an illusion, then I'm willing to play. It's okay. It's okay.